So, if you happen to get to a national appeal, there's some of this that's a rinse and repeat to an extent, but there's a few things to, I guess, just re-emphasize and keep in mind. There are a couple of things that are really important for you to do at this level, and this is where there's just a lot of due diligence. The most important things are that you have to make sure that your appeal addresses every possible procedure that your insurance covers and addresses everything that you have tried that your insurance doesn't cover, and make sure that you mention things that you'd be willing to try that aren't on your formulary, because that is the one thing at the national appeal that sometimes people can get hit with that they aren't expecting. That in the national appeal might say, for example, oh, you want to do prolotherapy, but we don't see you trying dry needling, when your insurance company would never in a million years try dry needling. So this might be a point to really make sure that you outline that you've tried everything that's covered in your formulary, and even the things that you've tried outside of it, and that you've exhausted everything. The things that you really need to highlight at the national appeal are focusing on medical necessity, again, the lack of alternatives that you have, poor outcomes of surgery, which at this point, again, should be really probably your only option, and finally, I'm not going to stop overstating this, again, focusing on the exception to coverage portion of things and not asking them to change their mind on whether or not the procedure is experimental. Exception to coverage. Don't ever forget re-emphasizing that. Then you want to emphasize what was missed in your internal appeal, because the more that was missed, the worse that makes them look, and then that gives the national appeal a place to really look and emphasize, and gives them a chance to look confident. Try to speak to, and you should try to include your advocate, or especially if you have an attorney at this point, your attorney on this. Try to speak to the highest person that you can within the national appeals process. You probably won't be able to speak to the person making the decision, but you may be able to speak to a high up executive or attorney at the appeals company. And I had a great experience more than once for really getting them on my side and having them really put pressure on the insurance company. So I ended up a couple of times not having to go through the national appeal, which was really nice. And that can really be helpful, just talking to the highest person possible and getting them on your side. If possible, try to qualify for an expedited appeal. If your condition has possible life-threatening implications, so for example, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, pain spikes implicitly can have high blood pressure can lead to aneurysms, so it can actually have life-threatening implications, and so you really can have serious effects. And you can really highlight those, especially if your insurance company didn't use your full records. And those are things that, again, those are up to you to include. So make sure if you do have things that could cause your condition to be life-threatening, that you include those. An expedited review has to be done by an expert in the field and has to include your full records. So that really puts a lot of pressure on them. And this is where it can really put your insurance company in a bind if they didn't use your full records. It can really screw them over, and that can set them up for a lawsuit and all kinds of great things. But again, our goal here is to really get you approved. And if you can do that, if you can become a thorn in their side, you can win this. So the expedited appeal is great. This can get the insurance company, like I said, a bit more trouble. And again, that word leverage is going to come up again. It can create more pressure from the outside. The national appeal group can put pressure on the insurance company to move more quickly than they even can. And that can really make them start to feel the pressure to just approve your procedure if they're not going to be able to meet the regulations of the national company to get things done in time. And then national appeals, like I said, they can occur in tandem with internal appeals, and they can often make the insurance company revisit your appeal at a time when they maybe didn't expect to. And a lot of times they can fold because they feel like they didn't adequately comply with the time limits, or they didn't adequately comply with the review, and find that they've messed things up and they don't want to get into trouble. And so sometimes, you know, this is where really that hack comes in more than the places in that fake meme are, that that you putting this pressure on them to have to comply with these time limits if they've cut any corners. That's really where these things come in. And then likely with the pressure put on the national appeals plus an attorney or legal counsel, the insurance company will fold, but it could really take some time still. And it could take you creating more leverage. And you've heard me say that word time and time again. And leverage is really the absolute key to winning. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Leverage is the only way to win. And so in the final segment, we're going to explain what this whole leverage thing is. And once you learn this, you're gonna know how to win at appeals, at least as long as you actually have the wherewithal and the stamina to do it. So final video coming, leverage.